Mikey Madison stars in Anora. Now, this is a character-driven story that you absolutely do not want to watch with your parents, or your kids, or your priest. A young sex worker from Brooklyn meets and impulsively marries the son of an oligarch. Once the news reaches Russia, her fairy tale is threatened as his parents set out for New York to get the marriage annulled.
We're going to be doing the good, the bad, and the ugly, and obviously we're going to start with the good. And for me, and I presume Chris, Mikey Madison is a big part of the good.
Absolutely, yes. Dynamic, she has so much charisma and strength. It's a bold and courageous role, I think. Kind of like even in The Substance with Margaret Qualley and Demi Moore. Because this involves a lot of skin.
Yeah.
And so Mikey Madison bears herself for the camera, but also for the story. And so it does take, I mean, her as herself, she brings just a lot of energy to the screen, and she becomes a very believable character. But then also just as an actor, that's a lot of guts to showcase yourself like this.
Yeah, I think it shines a light on sex working. You touched on this in our chat in the car on the way back. And it shines a light in a way that doesn't glorify it, but also doesn't show that it's not a job. It just shows you the nitty-gritty day-to-day life of what it means to be a sex worker, whether that's you're giving lap dances or more or extra stuff that goes under the table. We get to see all the cracks in there, and sometimes literally the cracks. And I think she plays a character that feels so real that it sometimes feels like you're a fly on the wall or on her shoulder experiencing what she's experiencing. It sometimes feels like a doc, so much so because it feels so authentically real. I 100% believe there are hundreds of Anoras out there after watching this movie because her character felt so real.
Well, in that opening sequence too. I mean, it is a drawn-out lap dance, first off. And then from there, we get to watch Madison's Anora go through her nightly routine. She's working the strip club as the sex worker. This can seem exploitative. But what I enjoyed about this was that the story was using this to actually humanize the character and then show us her strengths, show us the depth of her character, really, and make her come across as a person that we can then sympathize with, because so often characters put into these roles are just demonized for their choice of work. And so then any of that sympathy, any of that value, anything like that, it's just completely dismissed outright. And so that then allowed, at least for me, a larger and deeper connection to be made with her. So then when she goes on to this relationship that becomes hectic and everything else and like whirlwind, I'm already on board with her. I don't see her as a leech or as somebody who is less than. I'm rooting for her.
I think what helps tell the story is the way it is filmed. Like, looks-wise, it's a beautiful looking film, even in its most, I was gonna say, grotesque parts of it, when you're getting up into personal situations that we shouldn't be privy to. And the film takes its time to stay on some of those situations. It still looks incredible. So along with this very real, authentic acting performance that we have from the actress who plays Anora, we're getting something that looks sometimes doc-like, but always looks beautiful to look at, which is sometimes a contrast in itself, but a clever way to do the story.
Well, and I liked a lot of the shot choices that we used. There is some that I'm going to get to in the bad, but there is some intimate moments that we get. And I'm not talking about sexually, I'm talking about more so the closeness with our characters, where you have a character maybe leaning on somebody else and we get to just be right up in their space, where we can feel the emotion that is being between them, that closeness. There's also times where things are heightened and it's intense and there's verbal exchanges going on and the camera is like right up in your face there. Well, not in our face, in their face. And so you can see the spittle. Yeah. You can see, like, you know, the tongue and the lips quivering and all of these things. And what that did is that we feel the energy of that, and we're so up close and personal. I mean, we're intruding into their personal space.
Yeah.
But it never felt like we were so close that we shouldn't be.
There's a comedy tonal shift about midway through the movie that I definitely didn't expect, because the film is doing one thing with telling us who Anora is and her lifestyle, and we get to see, like I said, every little bit of nuance of her life. We stay on through a night, which feels like the first 30, 40 minutes of the movie. Once we start getting into that midway part where things start to unravel, the tonal shift is almost slapstick in nature. There's a good kind of kerfuffle, which I guess I can use that word, kerfuffle, because they're, without going into spoilers, they're trying to fix the mistake that's happened, to escalate the situation, and every situation that they find themselves in seems to escalate that much more, and it becomes more slapstick. Now, I didn't like all of this, but I think it definitely worked to maybe sharpen the pace up a little bit, give us some levity, because the story content of what we've had is quite dark in places. Maybe that was just me. Maybe that I just found it that way. Okay.
I found the humor really worked also, and it was very unexpected.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I think too, the thing that I really liked about it is that it came about naturally. These situations that were occurring, the slapsticky part of that was a natural development in the interactions.
Yeah, we're not talking slapstick like, Benny and June, where
the pratfalls and stuff.
Yeah, you're trying to. It's just it happened, and you feel like that kind of would happen for the situation that we're in.
Yes, I think also because this takes place in a very compressed timeline. While, I mean, huge, character growth is a big thing for me within films and within stories. We don't actually get to see a lot of character growth, but we get character reveal. And I think that's what really worked in this, because there are personalities that come to light the longer we're with them. Okay. And so take somebody that comes across as bad or as evil or we just don't like.
Yeah.
And then as we get to know them more, just see them more, we understand where they're coming from, or at least they reveal themselves to be deeper than that surface level bad or whatever that happened to be.
Okay. So the bad. So Mark Eidelstein plays Ivan. He plays a young, spoiled child of a wealthy family. And I say child because he is 21 in this film, but he acts like a 16 spoiled brat from a broken, dysfunctional family. And he plays it like he should, and there's nothing to disagree with there, except he's very surface level. We never really go deeper on this character. Considering he is the sort of love interest, we understand that he's just running away from his life, and caught up in the chaos of that is Anora. And the focus of the film is Anora, so I get it. But I would have liked more on his character, giving me something more of a humanity to him, rather than just being that one-dimensional spoiled brat child that we've seen lots of.
Well, and I had mentioned before in the good how I love the cinematography and some of the shot choices. But there's also something that I didn't enjoy a lot of, and that was the shaky cam that we got. Now, it's not used throughout, but there are a lot of frenetic moments that are conveying energy, and the scenes are cutting very quickly, and the interactions and the actions of our characters are just high energy, always on the move, doing all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
So I like that, and I like what that does for the story, because it helps move it along in these instances. But the shaky cam in there made it difficult sometimes to focus on the actual scene, especially as it would shift to another one that was completely locked down.
Yeah.
And so it was uneven.
Again, with the tonal shift. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. For me also, the pacing between our story segments, it felt a little uneven.
Yeah.
That, like you talk about, we had character building drama at the beginning, and then we go into tension, but also with comedy.
Yes.
And then into an angry type of chase, maybe. And so each of these are done well.
Yes.
But they're uneven between those. And then some of the shots, I felt within the scenes, they just stayed longer than they needed to. And so this drug it out. And the story, the movie itself is already long. It's 2 hours and 19 minutes?
19 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. So when you land or you stay on something longer than necessary, it doesn't have the effect of making this feel shorter when it's a long movie anyway. I have one more bad, which may be on your ugly, but it's...
Yeah, if you're already touching some of my ugly, but yeah.
But, I'm not totally sure what the main message of the story was. I mean, because I enjoyed watching the character drama of her life, because it gives us insight into the person. I mean, she's strong already. Like, out of the gate, we already see that she's strong.
Yeah.
But then she finds herself just being kneecapped because she takes a leap, and she gives over to this emotion which she's been shielding herself from for a long time. And so she's opened herself to vulnerability, which then allows for some heartbreak and some disappointment. And I get that. It's a character drama.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, why? So
you touched on the length, but I do want to talk about it just a bit longer, because the film lingers on certain scenes that I was trying to think, like you're mentioning with the message, like what is the point of the movie? And I think it's not preachy, but because some scenes feel forced, it forces you to feel a certain way. And for me, this is the largest issue of the film. There are a lot of films that, in fact, all films, make you feel a certain way. The director, the creator, especially the editor, when it comes down to the finality, when they've got everything together, they want the film to tell a certain story and to have you feel funny, sad, scared, whatever. This film opts for the more obvious route, where it doesn't feel like they've tried to hide any of that underneath. There's no subtext. It's not preachy, but this is what you want. We want you to feel here, and this is what we want you to feel here. So instead of feeling artsy, which it is definitely, it kind of feels like they're hand-holding you along with the artsy feel to it. Now, had I known who the director was going into this movie, I probably would have opted for watching it at home. So this could be just a Ruben issue, because this director, like the Florida Project, the other two I mentioned,
Red Comment,
I didn't enjoy those.
Okay.
Because I felt the length, and I felt it was very artsy and sometimes in your face, showing this is what I'm telling you, and this is, I don't want to be force fed.
Yeah.
It's not spoonful, but it's force fed sometimes. And for me, that works sometimes, but not quite in the way I was expecting with this.
For me, I don't really have anything that stood out to me as terrible in this. We have characters who are terrible, but they're designed that way. I think probably the strangest thing, though, that did stand out to me is the final scene working its way into the credits. We have the fade to black, and we have a natural sound happening, and then that fades out. And for the remainder, 2.5, 3 minutes of credits, there is utter silence.
Yeah.
It was just uncomfortable. This has nothing to do with, you could get up and leave at the end of the credits, but it was just, it was
purposeful.
Strange.
Again, it's what I was going back to saying, forcing you to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
We want to linger on this moment, so you are now going to go, no music. So you remember that scene, you end with it, which is not kind of allowing us to go on the journey with the movie rather than making us go on that journey with the movie.
So overall, Anora is an optimistically heartbreaking fairy tale with a powerful and stellar performance from Mikey Madison. The storytelling is enveloping and layered, creating a compelling character drama that uniquely uses sex work as its relational impetus. With frantic and intimate shot choices and a deeply humanizing characterization of the lead, Anora weaves an unexpectedly touching emotional journey based on simplicity, but filled with the complexities of a passionate affair. And while the pacing is uneven between chapters and the story does linger longer on scenes than necessary, the final product is captivatingly melancholy. There is an absolute ton of sex and nudity, almost nonstop profanity, and then some violence. I give Anora 4 out of 5 couches. Yeah. So what are some character-driven movies that you enjoy? I would love to hear about them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is my friend Ruben from the Ruby Tuesday. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with us.